I'm Scarlett Hayes, the daughter of the esteemed Hayes family. On my 18th birthday, my father brought home the housekeeper's daughter and told us to get along. That girl, right in front of everyone, wanted to call me her sister. I just thought she was insane. I'm the mistress. You're the maid. Who's your dear sister? The moment the words left my mouth, a stream of comments popped up in front of my eyes. This villainess is too stupid. Not only does she not try to get in with the protagonist, but her words are also so nasty. Exactly. She'll learn her lesson when the protagonist ruins her family later. Watching the bizarre comments, I scoffed even louder. Get in with the protagonist? Why should I? Who's the protagonist and who's the villainess isn't up to you to decide. Gloomy Sweet Potato reminds you, the novel Bamboo Purity, Master and Servant begins now. On my 18th birthday, my father brought the housekeeper's daughter home. In front of all the socialites and influential figures of New York City, he told us to get along. The housekeeper's daughter, with an air of pure innocence, smiled at me. You must be Scarlett Hayes, right? I'm Lucy Miller. I'm older than you. So if you don't mind, you can call me sister. Please guide me during my time here at the Hayes residence. People exchanged glances, and the scene erupted in murmurs. How could a girl introduced by the heir be merely the housekeeper's daughter? Isn't she obviously his illegitimate child? My mother, standing beside me, immediately frowned. She was about to step forward, but I stopped her. I first sized up Lucy Miller from head to toe. Then, in front of everyone, I sneered. Lucy Miller. Is it? How can you be so disrespectful before even stepping through the door? In the Hayes family, I am the mistress, and you are the servant. Who's your dear sister? At these words, Lucy Miller froze on the spot. Simultaneously, two lines of comments appeared out of thin air before me. This villainess is too stupid. Not only does she not try to get in with the protagonist, but her words are also so nasty. Exactly. She'll learn her lesson when the protagonist ruins her family later. Looking at these peculiar comments, I scoffed even louder. Protagonist. My ass. I'm the esteemed daughter of the Hayes family. Why would I need to get in with an illegitimate child? What's more, who's the protagonist and who's the villainess isn't up to you to decide. Lucy Miller had always had things her way and had never been ridiculed like this. She immediately retorted righteously. Miss Hayes, please apologize to me. In modern society, everyone is equal. There's no longer such a thing as master and servant. You are insulting my soul. Or are you still clinging to some feudalistic ideals? As soon as she finished speaking, I burst out laughing. Insulting your soul? Cut the crap. I sneered, the high-end jewelry on my neck glittering under the crystal chandeliers. Give me a break. Don't try to morally blackmail me here. Your mother has been our housekeeper for over 20 years, raising me, the young mistress, for 18 years. The money for your plane ticket here and your schooling was all paid by our family. When you were taking our money for free, why didn't you talk about everyone being equal? What's more, don't try to lecture me here. The Hayes family is not yours to threaten. And sorry, but I'm a filthy rich parvenu. Your moral blackmail doesn't work on me. Besides, when I'm donating $200 million a year to give back to society, where are you? Someone like you, who only talks a big game, isn't qualified to spout nonsense here. At these words, everyone burst into laughter. My younger brother, James Hayes, behind our mother, laughed until he was out of breath. I told you not to morally blackmail our family's anti-troll god. Didn't I? Now look. You got roasted. Didn't you? As the entire room of dignitaries roared with laughter. The comments section was shocked. Dude. Why isn't this following the novel's plot? Exactly. After the protagonist says her lines, everyone should start hating the villainess. And then the second male lead, James Hayes, should back up the protagonist. It's all messed up. But seriously, doesn't anyone else think the villainess actually made some good points? The protagonist had no standing to say what she did. She's taking advantage of others and then trying to morally blackmail them. Isn't that just having your cake and eating it too? Regardless of what the comments said, my words were well-reasoned and completely shut down Lucy Miller. Seeing herself laughed at by so many people, Lucy Miller's eyes immediately reddened. She took a step back, tears welling up as she apologized. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. All my wrong. I just wanted to get along peacefully with Ms. Hayes. I didn't expect to make Ms. Hayes dislike me so much. It's all my fault. I didn't mean to disturb your party. Please forgive me. After saying this, she immediately looked tearful and fragile. Seeing his illegitimate daughter crying, my father's heart immediately softened. He was about to step forward to comfort her, but I beat him to it. I scoffed, hands on my hips, and began to unleash a torrent of words. Can't win an argument. So you start playing the victim and pretending to be pitiful? You keep saying I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But you haven't actually given an inch. You clearly know this is my 18th birthday party. And I'm the main character. But you're stealing the spotlight. And even now, I haven't seen you show an ounce of embarrassment. You're pretending to be confused when you understand perfectly well. You know you shouldn't be here. So why don't you just get lost instead of offering these half-hearted apologies? You're nothing but a stupid, wicked evil cherry. At these words, my brother, James Hayes, spat out a mouthful of drink. The Hayes family is in the entertainment industry, and the surrounding young ladies and gentlemen are even more plugged into current trends. They all burst out laughing, leaving Lucy Miller standing there, looking helpless and on the verge of tears from my verbal assault. Seeing the situation about to get out of hand, I snapped my fingers. Bodyguards swarmed in and directly escorted Lucy Miller away. With the party disruptor gone, the ballroom immediately returned to quiet. My mother smiled and walked over to me, apologizing to the people around us. My daughter is just like this, outspoken and doesn't take kindly to being wronged. Please excuse her. Hearing this, everyone expressed their understanding. Some family elders, who had good relations with the Hayes Corporation, even praised my quick wit, making my mother chuckle behind her hand. In this harmonious atmosphere, everyone tacitly ignored my father, the instigator. My father's face was dark, but no one came to his aid. After all, ever since the late Mr. Hayes passed away, my mother had been managing the family affairs. Everyone who came to my birthday party did so out of respect for my mother. Even for future business collaborations with my mother, no one would bother with my father. The birthday party gradually got back on track, and my mother began introducing me to influential figures in New York City, helping me expand my network. While busy socializing, I also kept an eye on the comments. Is the villainess really going to completely offend the protagonist now? This is too outrageous. And isn't anyone going to stop her? Wasn't Scarlett supposed to be furious and leave? And then Lucy Miller become the main character of the birthday party? Why is it turning into the villainess counterattacking the protagonist? The person upstairs is right. Since it's a female protagonist power fantasy novel. Just tell me if Scarlett's words just now were satisfying or not. Satisfying. +1. Seeing the comments section starting to shift its direction, I scoffed and no longer paid attention to any ridiculous plot or character development. I was the protagonist of my own life. After an entire evening of socializing, I had, with my mother's guidance, expanded my network and gained many resources. The constantly updating comments also gave me a general understanding of what was going on. As I expected, Lucy Miller was my father's illegitimate daughter. And the world I was in was a mindless rags-to-riches novel about an illegitimate daughter rising to become a powerful CEO and reaching the pinnacle of her life. According to the plot, my mother and my brother, James Hayes, were both villainous side characters. When Lucy Miller pretended to be the housekeeper's daughter and returned to the Hayes family, my brother and I would repeatedly make things difficult for her. But she would always cleverly resolve them. At school, she would also use her charisma to win over the students who initially looked down on her. Even my fiancé, Alex Carter, would fall for her charms and become her boyfriend. Finally, she would steal my ideas and projects, start her own business, and then, in conjunction with the Carter family, bankrupt the Hayes family. My mother and brother would then face imprisonment due to the bankruptcy and ultimately die tragically in jail. After reading all of this, I just thought, what kind of senseless power fantasy novel is this? Does it even touch on the concept of a strong female lead? Isn't this just a story about an illegitimate daughter using deceit to seize property that doesn't belong to her? Who is actually praising such a morally corrupt story? However, from the information in the comments, the events that had just unfolded seemed to have deviated from the plot. Yet, I hadn't received any punishment for deviating from the plot. This meant that Lucy Miller's protagonist's golden finger had disappeared. Thinking this, I narrowed my eyes slightly. In that case, let's just compete fairly, each relying on our own abilities. After the birthday party, my mother and I were seeing off guests at the door when the butler, Johnson, approached us and whispered to my mother, "The Miss Lucy, who was restrained earlier, is yelling in the basement, threatening to call the police, claiming we are illegally detaining her." Hearing this, my mother frowned. But my brother, James Hayes, had a spark of interest in his eyes. He nudged my arm and gave me a look. As siblings born of the same mother, I immediately understood his unspoken message. Was he planning something? My brother then cleared his throat and humbly asked our mother, "Mom, can Scarlett and I handle this one?" My mother looked at my brother, who resembled a mischievous rogue. "Are you sure?" My brother quickly nodded like a bobblehead. "Don't worry, Mom and Dad. With my sister watching me, I promise not to do anything out of line." As he said this, I also chimed in with a guarantee to my mother. After a moment, my mother finally nodded reluctantly. "All right. Consider it a chance for you two to gain some experience. Don't mess it up. Hearing this, my brother excitedly agreed and eagerly pulled me away from the scene. Because we left in a hurry, my brother and I didn't change out of our formal attire. We sat directly on the living room sofa. My father had been escorted out of the ballroom by the butler before the banquet even ended and was now confined to the second floor of the villa. The maid brought the struggling Lucy Miller up and directly tossed her onto the floor. She struggled violently. And once the tape over her mouth was removed, her previous composure was completely gone. She glared furiously at my brother and me. "I'm calling the police. I'm suing you for illegal detention." Hearing this, I couldn't help but chuckle. I immediately instructed the butler beside me. "Who told you the Hayes family was going to illegally detain you?" "Someone. Untie Ms. Lucy." At these words, Lucy Miller's face lit up with joy. However, my next words made her expression stiffen. "But if you walk out of the Hayes family's gate today, you'll never be allowed back in for the rest of your life." After saying this, I looked at her with a half smile. "Now, do you still want to leave?" Lucy Miller's mouth opened and closed, finally falling silent. The comments section could no longer hold back. "Seriously? She's been mocked so much. Can't Lucy Miller be a bit more backbone?" "Exactly. Wasn't she supposed to be the strong female lead? The villainess mocked her so much. Shouldn't she just turn around and leave? Then rely on her own efforts to slap the villainess in the face? Give me a break. An illegitimate daughter who relies on others' sponsorship. And a strong female lead? I've seen through it. This Lucy Miller just talks a good game. But in reality, she's a scoundrel who relies on others for everything." With the comments gradually discovering Lucy Miller's true nature, I looked at her with a mocking expression. The words on my lips ultimately remained unsaid. I've seen too many illegitimate daughters like her. She came to the Hayes family simply for money and power. If she hadn't harbored ill intentions and had honestly sought my mother's help, my mother would have at least given her a way out. But looking at her thinly veiled ambitions now, well, sorry. But if you can walk out of the Hayes family alive, then my brother and I aren't doing our jobs right. Half an hour later, my mother finally finished seeing off the guests and leisurely walked over to me. Soon after, the housekeeper, Mrs. Miller, and my father were brought up by the butler. When Mrs. Miller was brought up, her face showed extreme guilt, and she didn't even dare to look directly at my mother. My mother, however, remained calm, taking a sip of her tea. When Mrs. Miller finally couldn't bear it anymore, my mother slowly spoke. "Since she's Mrs. Miller's child, of course I'll show some respect. Although Ms. Lucy disrupted my daughter's birthday party, I believe she didn't do it intentionally. She traveled all the way to New York. And I can't just stand by and watch you two be separated. This time, I'll allow Lucy to stay with you in the housekeeper's quarters. She can also attend school with Scarlett and James." At these words, not just Mrs. Miller and Lucy Miller, but even the comments section was shocked. "No way. Is this lady crazy? It's obvious Lucy Miller is an illegitimate daughter. Can't she see that?" Soon, other comments refuted. "You're the fool. Mrs. Hayes is smart. If she admitted Lucy Miller was an illegitimate daughter, wouldn't she have to give her the treatment of a Hayes family daughter? Mrs. Hayes is pretending not to know. So Lucy Miller is still just the housekeeper's daughter. Then, my daughter can just mess with her. And since she's not family, it doesn't matter if she dies. Under my mother's smile, my father finally lowered his head, silently acknowledging Lucy Miller's identity. Lucy Miller's face clearly showed her unwillingness. But she was powerless. A hint of sarcasm flashed in my eyes as my brother and I exchanged glances, both understanding each other's thoughts. My father would never openly admit to having an illegitimate daughter. After all, my grandfather had long ago foreseen his philandering son's behavior. So he had written in his will that my father could inherit his shares only if he had no illegitimate children. If my father ever had publicly acknowledged illegitimate children, all of his shares would be transferred to my brother and me. Those illegitimate children would only be able to equally divide the paltry amount of real estate my father had already squandered. After that night, Lucy Miller lived in the housekeeper's quarters. The comments were constantly complaining about the deviation from the plot. But no one was defending Lucy Miller anymore. After all, everyone liked a righteous and morally superior protagonist who was adored by all. Not an illegitimate daughter who resorted to moral blackmail. Although there wasn't much fundamental difference between the two, my mother acted quickly. By Monday, she had transferred Lucy Miller's school records to my school. On the surface, my mother wasn't an overly harsh person. So Lucy Miller rode in the same car as us for school and back. Originally, 2 people sitting in the back seat was just right. But with Lucy Miller added, it became extremely cramped. According to the original plot suggested by the comments. After Lucy Miller came to the Hayes family, my brother, James Hayes, would become cold towards me and immediately bond with Lucy Miller. However, in reality, when James Hayes opened his phone and Lucy Miller leaned in, just about to say something, James Hayes covered his nose. He frowned and said, "Didn't you wash your hair?" Lucy Miller froze for a moment. Then James Hayes forcefully cut her off. "You didn't wash your hair and you're leaning on me? No way. We need to keep some distance." After saying that, he squeezed hard towards me, almost flattening me. I rolled my eyes speechlessly. Lucy Miller was rejected and immediately felt somewhat wronged. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Before, where I lived was very small, and getting hot water was inconvenient. To save water, I reduced the frequency of washing my hair." After saying that, she lowered her head and quietly sniffled twice, looking quite pitiful. But my brother and I exchanged glances, seeing only exasperation in each other's eyes. My brother wasn't in the mood to humor her either. "Give me a break. Stop talking nonsense. Do you really think we're idiots? I'm telling you. We know every housekeeper's salary in this house perfectly well. We also know how much your mom has earned all these years. For the past 10 years. Your mom's monthly after-tax salary has been $25,000. With a $350,000 annual bonus. Your hometown is in the north. Just with her annual bonuses these years, she could have bought a house outright in a major city. And you're still saying water wasn't convenient?" After saying that, my brother sneered. "Give me a break. I just have more brain cells than you. Unlike some brainless people. If you put the effort you use into pretending to be pitiful into studying, you'd have been accepted into Harvard or Yale long ago. And you wouldn't need to freeload off our family." His words were crude but true. And Lucy Miller was clearly shocked by my brother. For the rest of the ride, she didn't dare to say another word. Watching her silence, a sarcastic smile tugged at my lips. We are from a wealthy family, influenced by it since childhood, and no less shrewd than others. Especially my brother, James Hayes. Since inheriting his shares, he's been surrounded by all sorts of flirtatious women. Lucy Miller's little tricks wouldn't even make it onto the waiting list. If we're in a good mood, we might play along with your act. But if we're not, who would bother with an illegitimate daughter like you? Nevertheless, she was still the female protagonist of a novel. Even though Lucy Miller suffered setbacks with us, she remained determined when she arrived at school. Since she couldn't start with us, if she wanted to change her fate, according to my father's hints, she would have to use Alex Carter as a breakthrough point. Unfortunately, her naive hopes of an accidental encounter with Alex Carter, where they would be equally matched and slowly develop feelings in the same class, were shattered upon arriving at school. International schools are different from traditional schools. The school system is like a university, with a modular schedule. There are many students in each grade, and with elective courses, everyone's class schedule is very different. Even my brother, James Hayes, and I only have public classes in the same classroom, let alone Alex Carter, whom she had never met. I coldly watched Lucy Miller's astonishment when she saw her schedule, my sarcasm solidifying. Originally, according to the plot given by the comments, Lucy Miller should have made a stunning impression at yesterday's birthday party and caught Alex Carter's attention. Alex Carter, having never seen such a lively and clever girl, would fall in love with her at first sight. Upon learning that she was transferring to the international school, he would voluntarily give her his class schedule, asking her to find him during her free time. He would then act as her guide, showing her around the school. This kind of plot was a chain reaction. One wrong step, and the whole thing would collapse. But Lucy Miller seemed determined to latch onto Alex Carter. During roll call in homeroom, she directly sat next to Alex Carter according to the seating chart. Lucy Miller did have some looks, and Alex Carter was a playboy who never refused a lady. When a beauty threw herself at him and tried to flatter him, he naturally accepted. I sat behind them, calmly listening to their flirtatious chatter. Alex Carter listened with interest as Lucy Miller introduced herself, his flirtatious eyes making him seem like a gentleman. But only those in his circle knew that he was nothing but a scoundrel disguised as a gentleman, using money and power. He had the unique arrogance and harshness of the wealthy. Sure enough, after Lucy Miller, thinking she had won him over, walked away with a beaming smile, the boy sitting next to Alex Carter draped an arm over his shoulder and asked with a grin, "So, who's the little girl you're trying to snag now?" Alex Carter shrugged, looking nonchalant. "I don't know who she is either. But someone who throws herself at you like that couldn't be from a good family. Right? Anyway, forget it." At these words, the rascals around him burst into laughter. James Hayes, sitting next to me, snapped his fingers and lazily said, "You guessed it. That's my housekeeper's daughter. The one who was singing and dancing at my sister's birthday party last night. Lucy Miller." The social circle in New York City is small. There are only so many people our age and so many schools. Most of the people around us were young men and women who had been invited to the birthday party last night. Hearing James Hayes say this, They thought back carefully and all understood. One of them, Miss Wang, who was quite close to me, scoffed. I can't believe it's her. She actually thinks real life is like a CEO novel. Causing a scene last night and again this morning. Trying to get Alex Carter's attention? At these words, everyone laughed. Alex Carter, the male lead of the story, shrugged, smiling indifferently. Since she's not one of us, it doesn't matter if I just play around with her. Right? After saying that, Alex Carter and the surrounding rascals exchanged glances and smiled. Then, he was the first to pull out a card from his pocket. All right. Same as usual. I'll start a betting pool. Let's see when I can seal the deal. I'll put down my money first. 2 months at most. And as always, we'll record it and send it to the group. The video will be proof. With Alex Carter leading the way, the surrounding playboys also became interested. A group of teenage boys, filled with malice, all started putting money into this absurd gamble. I frowned slightly, feeling a bit uncomfortable. Turning to look at my brother, James Hayes. Although he was smiling, his eyes held disgust. But even though I was uncomfortable, I didn't feel any sudden surge of compassion that made me want to warn Lucy Miller. After all, everything happening now was her own doing. If she hadn't been greedy and tried to climb the social ladder by using Alex Carter, he wouldn't have had the chance to do something like this to her. What's more, I'm not a saint. If I were soft-hearted towards an illegitimate daughter who wanted to ruin my family and seize my property, then I would be the one to suffer. Roll call for morning class ended, and everyone left the classroom, preparing for the first public class. To ensure teaching quality, even public classes had a capacity of no more than 40 students. Alex Carter was not in the same classroom as us. My brother, James Hayes, sat next to me, gazing thoughtfully at Alex Carter chatting with Lucy Miller in the hallway. It's a good thing Mom refused Grandma's order to have you enter a commercial marriage with Alex Carter. Otherwise, if Alex Carter became my brother-in-law, I would beat him to death and then cut off his third leg so he couldn't mess around. Seeing my brother's murderous look, I laughed and patted his shoulder. All right. You're here for school, not to learn how to neuter pigs. Study hard. As for Alex Carter, evil will meet its match. After saying that, I gave Lucy Miller a meaningful glance. Lucy Miller was different from us. She had no fallback. We would be graduating in less than a year. And after graduation, it would be difficult to find another opportunity to cultivate relationships with wealthy young men like these. So, if Lucy Miller had her sights set on Alex Carter, she would cling to him at all costs. Then, there would be a good show to watch. Because of Lucy Miller's clinging, she successfully obtained Alex Carter's class schedule. We met in the school cafeteria. My mother, a wealthy lady raised in a deep mansion since childhood, was always meticulous in her actions. Naturally, she wouldn't deliberately make things difficult for Lucy Miller in small details, lest she be caught by those with ill intentions. Therefore, Lucy Miller's treatment at school was the same as mine. My brother, James Hayes, brought me a tray of food, then turned his head to look at Lucy Miller, who was sitting next to Alex Carter, smiling obsequiously. He said disdainfully, "Letting an illegitimate daughter like that into the school will bring shame to our Hayes family." Those people will definitely mock us because of Lucy Miller. Then we'll definitely have to clean up this illegitimate daughter's mess for the sake of our reputation. In big families, we rise and fall together. Father really planned well. Seeing my brother's indignant look, my expression remained calm. I reached out and tapped the table. All right. Say less. After saying that, seeing that he was still indignant, I sighed softly. James Hayes. Do you really think the Hayes family's reputation can be so easily tarnished? Meeting my brother's puzzled gaze, I patiently explained to him. Mother told me that a family's reputation is determined by its strength, not by its younger generation. If the Hayes family had fallen into Father's hands back then, and if the Hayes family were on the verge of bankruptcy now, even without Lucy Miller causing trouble, those people in the social circle wouldn't give us a good face. But now, Mother has managed the Hayes family to its peak. And those people are eager to curry favor with us and get some benefits from us. How could they risk offending us by mocking us because of a small Lucy Miller? After saying that, I looked at Lucy Miller, who resembled a clinging vine, with disdain in my eyes. Only when your own strength is solid will you not be ridiculed or looked down upon. So, instead of worrying about Lucy Miller tarnishing the Hayes family's reputation, you should focus on how to improve yourself. After saying that, I revealed a meaningful smile. What's more, Lucy Miller doesn't even have the Hayes surname. She's just a housekeeper's daughter. What does her making a fool of herself have to do with us Hayes family members? After I finished speaking, I saw my brother's eyes light up. Knowing that he had understood, I then said no more. From that day on, Lucy Miller seemed to have found her purpose. Even squeezed into the tiny housekeeper's room, she wore a smug expression every day. As Lucy Miller, the illegitimate daughter, was thriving, my father naturally received the news. Back then, Grandma wanted to marry me to Alex Carter because of the Carter family's strong influence. Now, with Lucy Miller, who was on his side, snatching Alex Carter, such a catch, from my grasp, he thought he had gained a powerful in-law family as backing and became incredibly inflated. He directly began to grandly start a business in New York City. If he had simply started a business, that would have been fine. But he directly reached his hand into the Hayes Corporation, which was managed by my mother. On Friday afternoon, my brother, James Hayes, and I came home from school. As soon as we entered the living room, a vase was fiercely smashed at my brother's feet. My brother was startled and immediately jumped onto me. Then, I heard my mother's sharp voice. I'm telling you, Stephen Hayes, are you even human anymore? This is the family business your father left you. Go ask around. Who starts a business by poaching from their own family? As soon as she finished speaking, my father scoffed. My father left me this family business? You have the nerve to say that. Look at the Hayes family now. Who gives me, the head of the household, any respect? Even your own assistant looks down on me. After saying that, my father roughly pushed my mother to the ground. Poaching a few executives and technicians from you is nothing. This is just the beginning. After my father died, you've been lording it over the Hayes family for so long. Enjoying yourself, haven't you? I'm telling you, your good days are over. I'm not only going to poach your people, but I'm also going to report you to the IRS for tax evasion and smuggling. Then, When the Heiress Corporation is dragged down by you, the board of directors will be the first to kick you out. Just wait to be kicked out and face legal action and go to prison with those sluts you gave birth to. After saying that, my father, in my mother's shocked, disappointed, and heartbroken gaze, laughed triumphantly. Lucy Miller, following behind him, also wore a smug, opportunistic expression as she looked at us. But soon, they couldn't laugh anymore. Seeing my mother pushed down, my brother, James Heiress, immediately became enraged. He rushed behind my father with lightning speed and kicked him squarely in the backside. My father was caught off guard and fell directly to the ground. He turned around furiously and cursed, "Who the hell?" Before he could finish his sentence, my brother directly punched him in the face. While hitting him, my brother also cursed, "I'll make you hit my mom. I'll beat you to death. You son of a bitch. You good for nothing who lays hands on women. Is that all you've got? Come on. Fight your grandpa." After saying that, he landed another punch on my father's stomach, making my father directly vomit bile. Seeing James Heiress not only beat up his father like a berserk deity but also act like his father's father, my mouth twitched. I could only comfort myself that his intentions were at least good. However, since my brother was so effective, I turned to look at Lucy Miller, who was standing to the side, looking anxious and wanting to intervene. I walked directly over, grabbed a handful of Lucy Miller's long hair, and fiercely slapped her across the face. Lucy Miller shrieked and covered her face. I, however, sneered, then roughly pulled Lucy Miller's hand away and slapped her beautiful face again. Watching her burst into tears, I smiled. The next second, I clamped down on her chin and smiled at her. "Lucy Miller, you seem very proud that my father is covering for you. Huh? A housekeeper's daughter dares to get all high and mighty in front of me." After saying that, I kicked her to the ground. The living room was already a mess. The expensive blue and white porcelain vase that had been on the table was also shattered on the floor. But Lucy Miller had just knocked it over. I looked at the pile of shattered pieces and chuckled for some unknown reason. "I can't believe a worthless thing like you ruined our most valuable antique. I only just bought this at Sotheby's last year. The price was over $200 million. After saying that, my gaze towards Lucy Miller changed. "Even if you sold your entire worthless self, you couldn't afford to pay that much. Could you?" As I spoke, I directly grabbed her long hair and pressed her face into the pile of porcelain shards. The next second, Lucy Miller's screams almost tore through the roof. The outcome of this battle was very satisfying. After my mother was pushed down, James Heiress punched and kicked my father, breaking 2 of his ribs, earning him the title of devoted son of volcanic fury. As for me, I was more civilized. Although Lucy Miller, the illegitimate daughter, didn't have any broken bones, her face was completely ruined by me. But for Lucy Miller, this was worse than breaking her limbs, since she was currently getting intimate with Alex Carter based on her looks. Ruining her face now was more agonizing than killing her. But that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that after we brutalized this father-daughter duo, the first thing they did wasn't call 911. Instead, my brother directly pinned them to the ground and negotiated. Having avenged being pushed down, my mother's face was no longer filled with resentment. With a businesswoman's characteristic coolness, She squatted down and looked directly at my father. "Stephen Hayes. You poached the Hayes Corporation's technicians and executives. And I can't just stand by and do nothing. But you are still Scarlett and James's father. And you're part of the Hayes family. As the saying goes, a wife follows her husband. And I can't treat my own family members by business rules. So, if you hand over Lucy Miller's mother to me, we'll call it even this time." As soon as she finished speaking, Lucy Miller, whose face was bruised and swollen, immediately became anxious. "Dad, you can't abandon my mom. My mom has been with you for so long." Before she could finish, I directly slapped her across the face. "Who told you to speak? Shut your mouth." With that, I casually picked up a rag from the table and directly stuffed it into her mouth. But a glimmer flashed in my father's eyes. After a moment, he scoffed. "I thought you were a heroine. But it turns out you women are just petty. My father was blind to use you. A short-sighted woman. Instead of me. His son. But she's just a housekeeper anyway. Take her if you want." At these words, the butler, who was standing beside my mother, immediately rushed out of the house with bodyguards. 5 minutes later, the bodyguards brought in a well-dressed woman adorned with gold and silver jewelry. I scoffed, looking at the mistress. This old witch. I don't know where she got the guts. But she dared to buy a villa near our house for this mistress. And this mistress was also an ignorant lunatic, insisting on walking her poodle, adorned with gold and silver, around our house every day for the past few days. My mother's expression remained unchanged, still maintaining her elegant ladylike smile. I coldly watched the mistress, who had been strutting around proudly in her gold and silver jewelry these past few days, being tied up and brought out. Seeing Lucy Miller struggle, I felt a burst of satisfaction. Dealing with her now was certainly not a loss. After all, they were mother and daughter by blood. Lucy Miller howled particularly excitedly. I was annoyed by her struggling and cleanly slapped her twice more. After sending my father and Lucy Miller off in the ambulance, my brother walked over to my mother and whispered, "She's just a mistress. Is she worth you going to such great lengths to find an excuse?" My mother glanced at him but didn't say anything. I sighed softly, having to play the role of commentator. I pulled open the drawer of the coffee table, revealing a pregnancy test report. I casually tossed it to my brother. If she were just a mistress, then no, she wouldn't be worth it. But if that mistress is also carrying a pair of twins in her belly, then she's very much worth it. Hearing this, my brother immediately widened his eyes and carefully flipped through the pregnancy report. My mother took a deep breath. The elegance of a wealthy lady completely gone from her face.